My impressions of the higher French audio exam, I think, will not go down well with the SQA.
Well, fuck SQA. Who cares?
Careful, man.
They need taking down a peg or two.
Wow.
What are they going to do? Take my GCSEs off me?
Imagine. The whole system would collapse. You wouldn't have your degree, your PhD.
I'm hoping SQA wouldn't take my PhD away from me.
I don't know. I think once one what's that game? One Jenga piece comes out.
Oh God, yeah.
Your whole education.
Oh, quick question before we start the meeting then. If you were going to go back and do another degree, in a different subject, what subject would you pick? Go.
Management.
My arse would you do management?
Threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Film studies, 100% I would do film studies.
Oh, great. Well, you could just take the exam now, right?
Oh, I mean, isn't this what this is?
You've studied this for the last 4 years, the bunch of us. We should be teaching the course.
Just wait till you hear what I have to say about Masculin Féminin.
Yeah, I can't wait. How about you, Claire?
I think I'd do maths.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Great call.
Wow. Okay. Oh, I forgot about fractals.
That is
I do
the
fractal
only
math.
right answer.
Yeah.
Or ancient history. But
Ancient history would be pretty cool.
Oh, that's a good idea.
that would just be as a hobby. What about you, Fernando? What would you do?
I think I would like to do medicine.
Oh, interesting.
Brilliant.
That's quite a noble choice.
Yeah. That's ambitious as well. You're in that for 6 years.
Well, I mean, one is supposed to be working for the rest of one's life, right? So, I mean, what's 6 years compared to the rest of your life?
Good point.
Yeah, well said. Excellent.
And Michael, what would you do?
I think astronomy.
Ooh.
Wow. Yes. Yeah,
I think about
that's
some
also
kind
a
of
good one.
history, but yeah, I think astronomy would have it.
I'd like to learn all about the moon and that.
Exactly.
So when people in NASA study the stars, what do they study?
They count them all. They want to know how many there are.
They look at charts and see if they can find zodiac signs and see if planets are moving between them and whether that can tell the future. I know what astronomy is.
I'm not sure that's what NASA do.
Are they the ones writing the horoscopes then?
Yeah, exactly.
I think something's got a bit mixed up here.
Really?
Well, you'd think if they could tell the future, they wouldn't have so many aborted rocket launches, right? They're like 10 minutes before they're going to launch, they're like, oh, sorry, the oxygen's leaking again. We're going to have to try it again in 2 months. I've taken the morning off work to see it. Oh, well. Then they eventually did it in the middle of the fucking night, and I forgot to get up and watch it, so there we are.
But what's the Leo sign for today, please?
I can look that up for you.
I can't read the chart.
Leo is your star sign, is it?
It is.
I found Leo for the day.
Okay. What are we?
It says, today, Laura... Wow.
Wow.
That's pretty good. Today, Laura, you will die.
What?
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. Imagine if I do die.
Oddly specific, isn't it?
What website is that? You should come off it.
I'm going to read my horoscope.
I'm reading mine, actually, yes.
Excellent.
What's yours, Fernando?
It says today will not be a too stressful day, and you are suggested to stay at home and work over your life. Don't be too stressful over anything, as it is a perfect day to chill. Involve yourself with people who make you happy. Which is what I'm doing, so I guess...
How lovely.
What shit is this? At least, I thought at least the idea with astrology is that it sounds mystical and we could make ourselves believe that there's some like ancient tome someone's got where they're looking up what these things were. Today it's a good day to chill. Come on. yeah, I think that's what Merlin wrote in his prophecy, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm taking this straight from NASA, so...
Yeah.
When the moon comes close to Mars, that means it's a good day for Fernando to take life pretty easy.
Watch some Netflix and hang out, yeah.
Fuck's sake.
So your issue is that it's not in Latin. That's your only trouble.
I recently found out that there are some Catholic masses that are performed in Latin. And I was like, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Why would anyone want to go to service they do not understand?
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
A question to answer your question. Why would anyone want to go to a service they do understand?
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Something that doesn't confront me with a load of nonsense, I think, is far preferable to me. If I can just sit there and not know what rubbish they're spouting, that'd be a big improvement for me.
Like the shipping forecast, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't really know what they're saying.
Nomini Patri, north at Sierra, south at Sierra, 3 approaching 4 later.
They used to do that, and they'd have like second-class churches in Scotland where like the Gaelic speakers would have to go to the shitty little room next door to get their Gaelic sermon, and all the proper people would get their Latin sermon, all the educated people.
Yeah, all the people who could speak Latin and therefore had souls worth saving. That's nice that they do an extra one for the Gaelic speakers. There wasn't one in English?
No.
Okay. Only in dead languages that people only speak as a joke or a hobby, then.
My God, you're coming for everyone today.
No one's safe. What's the matter, everyone? Too challenging for you? I speak as I find, Laura. If people don't like it, they can just get the hell out of my way.
Yeah. What's next?
Right, I've done Catholics, I've done NASA, I've done Highlanders, physicists.
The SQA.
SQA, yeah. Who will I do next?
Will it be Jean-Luc Godard by any chance?
Maybe it'll be Jean-Luc Godard. No, I think he's one of me, one of us.
I'd like you to not cut any of this. I think you should do an announcement at the start that says you should skip to 18 minutes if you want the film discussion.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think Film Club should now be us just reading our own horoscopes and discussing them.
Yeah, I didn't like mine. I'm going to find a new one.
I could get you a premium reading if you like, Michael.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that sounds like a good investment.
So I can get a free psychic reading.
And it's
I feel
free.
like that might not be as high quality. So you can get premium readings if you like. For example, Finding Love tarot reading.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Tarot reading.
Yep, it's only $14.99.
$14.99. They probably don't even use a real deck. They're probably just like basically do some equivalent of the lunch spinner that I wrote that tells you what restaurant to go to, except rather than showing you the like random number generator that it uses, just says consulting the spirits or whatever.
Like that little plastic fish thing that always says changeable.
Yes. Or your mood ring that's like, weirdly it says that I'm satisfied when it's a warm day, but if it's like really cold inside, it says that I'm dead.
Oh, I can get a tarot read if I put in my first name.
Oh, yes.
Uh-oh. How much if you put in your first name and your address,
and my credit
your
card
bank
details.
card number and your mother's maiden name, yeah. I can tell you what your future holds if you do that.
It holds poverty.
You will meet a tall, dark stranger who will empty your bank account.
I've done it. It says the judgment, and it shows a picture of like God judging me.
Oh
My
shit, that's not
God.
good.
Bloody hell.
After Michael's death prediction, that's not great.
Just from my name. Oh no. I think we better have the meeting because
Who knows when.
I'm about to die.
Oh well, we'll quickly bang out a meeting, and then you can make peace with. Say goodbye
The
to
creator.
everyone.
Yeah. I always knew this would be the last thing I did on this air. Right. I'll play the music.
Lovely. Salut, mesdames et messieurs. Encore une fois, un film français.
Oui.
Fernando, merci pour cet choix. Et pourquoi avez-vous choisi cet film cette semaine?
Well, I panicked. I panicked. So since it was not Waha, California, I was like, well, then it must be this. And yeah, that's the only reason.
Cool.
Excellent.
Good reason.
How do you feel about your choice?
Well, I mean, I should have seen it coming. I was like, oh, yes. This just came to confirm my suspicions about black and white movies. Yes.
Oh, I thought this was going to be a rare one that you and I both liked.
I'm not sure why. What? Did you like it?
Yeah, this was great.
You did.
What?
Of course you did.
I liked it as well.
There's no. Shut up.
Whoa, okay, here we go. So that's two thumbs down, 2 thumbs up. I wonder if we can sort of persuade anyone and get a verdict by the end of the meeting.
I feel like Laura might be a difficult one to persuade.
Yeah, Laura seems to have very strong views on this.
Yeah, I do.
Right. Maybe you'd like to kick us off.
Right. This was awful. And I tried so hard to like it. And occasionally, just very occasionally, I was like, okay, maybe this is all right. Maybe I can do this. The only real joy I got from it was thinking about you watching it and hating it. I imagine.
Now I've taken that away from you.
Now you've taken this away from me because I thought, oh my God, Michael's going to hate this. I fell asleep at one point, so I've missed 10 minutes, and I don't even remember. I thought I should go, for the purposes of film club, I should probably go back, and I thought, no, you know what? I'm not going back. What's gone is gone.
Okay. Did you have any good dreams while you were asleep, or?
It was a solid knockout. Just my brain was saving me from this.
Dreamless sleep. Yeah.
But someone else can give their opinion if you.
Fernando, you didn't like it?
No, as in, what was it about? As in, what was it about?
What wasn't it about, Fernando?
Well, it was not about stars, or was it?
Ooh.
No, it wasn't about stars. That's true.
They didn't mention the moon. This is one point in favour of there being no moon. Exactly. Yeah.
The conspiracy of the moon hadn't been concocted.
Of course, 1965.
They did mention the stars in one bit, actually,
but not the moon.
No,
not the moon.
It was one of Paul's incomprehensible outbursts. Mentioned the stars at one point.
5 décembre 1965. Les étoiles.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, he did, didn't he?
Claire, what
thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
I cannot believe this.
It was.
I was banking on both of you.
Oh no. No, it was just humans just chatting for 2 hours, like hour and a half. Just these characters that you kind of got to know a bit and who were a bit mad, each in their own way, and a bit frustrating each in their own way. And it was just, I felt very part of their existence for that little period of my life.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Me too. It had some truth to it.
What truth? What is that truth?
Yes, please enlighten us. Sorry, I'll stop being so combative.
It's like Claire said, it gave us an insight into some people's lives, and some parts of that was completely just absurd and off the wall, and some parts of it was very intimate and very kind of real somehow. So we heard characters speaking their innermost thoughts, and we heard what they were shocked by and what they loved, what they hated. How they defined themselves, the idea of someone his job is going round and writing for a journal and just filling it with people's attitudes and people's attitudes, trying to understand what people thought and how people saw the changing world in the middle of the 1960s in Paris. It was fascinating. It was great hearing how people were viewing different things and how they were responding differently to the different questions. And through it all, how these I guess 4 or so people were living their lives and just kind of navigating what their beliefs were. We had this young guy, Paul, who wants to see a better world, and he's got into he spends all his time finding excuses to sort of promote this political belief, but at the same time he's a really like objectionable awful man who really treats people badly and is a bit selfish and a bit uncaring, and that there's some weird conflict between those. Meanwhile, there's this girl Madeline who's a bit more just trying to get on, trying to live her life, but doesn't know whether she's in love or doesn't know if she cares about Paul, or it's just sort of at a bit of a loss. And it seemed like most of the characters were a bit of one of those or the other. I feel like there was a very clear division between that, because the people who cared about the war, politics, socialism were all men, and all of the women cared only about themselves and were just there to be coy and smile and respond in a very positive way to being sexually harassed. Yeah,
that was part of the reason I just detested it. I thought because Godard is a well-known, like, just massive sexist,
so
and I saw it really clearly.
When I saw it was Godard, I wonder if this is going to be, because you've mentioned this before, but I don't think the men were portrayed positively. I think the men were quite clearly very objectionable. That there were times when they were doing these things where they were harassing these women from the fairly gentle, trying to sneak a look at their boobs or whatever without them noticing, all the way up to like physically intimidating them and all of that. And that seemed to correlate with them having these views about how to improve the world, which was a fascinating sort of dissonance, which I think I've heard you talk about before, Laura, that sometimes people, the more sort of serious people get into like political agendas and stuff, the more they tend to kind of get a bit weird in their personal lives and just mistreat people around them. I think that was very clear that at best they were immature teenagers who should know better, and at worst they were quite threatening, unpleasant, intimidating guys. And meanwhile, the women didn't really have flaws. They were
angels.
Good characters. That they were angels.
I disagree.
Not quite angels.
But go on.
But we weren't led to dislike them, were we?
No, they're just sex objects. What's to dislike about that?
I don't think they were just sex objects, were they?
I thought they lacked depth and they lacked any objection to being objectified.
Okay. Yeah, certainly it was striking how much they kind of went along with things. And the most that they objected to things was a sort of coy smile and, well, that's none of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Pourquoi?
J'aime pas parler de ça.
Pourquoi?
Parce que ça vous regarde pas.
Vous n'aimez pas sortir avec un garçon?
Si, mais ça dépend lequel.
Et en ce moment, vous sortez avec un garçon?
Ça vous regarde pas.
And there was no really what they should have done, which was just kick these guys out of their lives. But it was interesting. There was something going on there.
That is a completely different reading from me. It's interesting. I mean, maybe I'll never go back and watch it, but
yeah, okay. How did you read it, Claire?
I'll park that little thought in my mind.
It's interesting. So, I think it played heavily on the men being politically involved and the women being less interested in politics. But I don't think that was I didn't see it as trying to sort of minimise the women in any way or like nullify their importance. It was just that I kind of thought it was saying these men were obsessed with this kind of silly hobby they had, where all they did was graffiti. Like, they didn't actually do anything to improve the cause. It was sort of, you know how when you're like 14 and you think you're going to change the world and you write, to stop the war and you're a jotter in English and you think you're a rebel. Yeah. And it was kind of making them look a bit stupid for thinking they were these heroes, whereas the women were just like, well, yeah, I read the newspapers, a lot happens, I'm just going to concentrate on living my life.
Yeah.
And you could read that as them being like ignoring the world around them, or as sort of seeing the futility of what these two guys were up to, and just not getting involved.
I wonder if you're reading that, though. I mean, because I see them as foolish as well, but I thought the film could have been made by one of these men. You know, like, I wonder how much critique is there if he meant to make them look as foolish as they did, or if he was just so on their side and was ripping the women. Like, even the one who says, I read the newspaper, I thought it was very clear, the woman in the window, that she was meant to look the fool, that he was clearly reading into, like, what do you know about this? What do you know about this? And her just smiling and being like, oh, nothing. Oh, I need to read the news. But then she didn't know anything. She was just ignorant and smiling. I think that was the point where I was just like, this man is a wrong un. He's a bad egg. Do you know he said that women shouldn't make films?
Oh, God,
yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, okay.
Also, I'm sad. We would have been treated to Anna Karina, but he divorced her by this point, so we had to find just a lookalike.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering whether Anna Karina was going to turn up, but now it's got to 65.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Oh, I missed her as well.
Yeah, would have improved things.
Yeah, I think without knowing anything about Godard, I have no reason to believe that he was trying to make heroes out of the men.
No.
I suppose. Okay.
It would have been the most terrible attempt to make heroes out of the men. They were so appalling, so just pathetic as characters, petulant, just a bit dumb, and aggressive, and just randomly flying off the wall, just chasing these women around with no sense of good humour or fun. They were just these useless characters. And then, the conclusion of the film, if you're awake for it, Paul just dies by just slipping off a window ledge by accident while he's arguing with his girlfriend, and no one particularly seems to care.
Fernando, what did you think?
What did I think? It was a slow movie.
Did you find it sexist?
I did find it sexist, yes. And I wonder if it was the intention of the person who made the film to make the men look bad, or if the men, how did society see those men in 1965? Were they also objectionable, or were they just standard? And
I think it was gently poking fun at them. I wouldn't have said that he thought they were really objectionable. I think he thought that maybe they were idealistic and uninformed but well-meaning, and that that it was a light sexual harassment that we were meant to read comedy into.
Yeah, I do think that there was.
Were we meant to read comedy on those? Wow.
I think at the time that would just have been seen as playful flirting.
Leaning over to get the sugar and making a joke about the brand of bra. Yeah,
that's really not okay.
I I feel like every single scene, it was one of the men just interrogating a woman about her sex life.
Yeah.
I've got that written down. Yeah, it must have been half the film was these really, aggressive interrogations. And again, I just found myself identifying more and more with the women who were just getting these questions just barked at them.
Yeah.
And, when someone barks at you, what do you think of the war? And did you read the fucking newspaper? Yeah, of course you'd sort of chuckle and be like, okay, I mean, I don't read every article. I wouldn't say I'm like all that politically engaged. I don't know. It just seemed very, very real to me, very true to life that would be how they would react. And there was some critique of the way these interrogations were going. Just towards the end, we had this voiceover, which I think was a voiceover from Robert, right? Where he said, I realised the more I did this, that the way I was asking the questions and the fact that I was looking for my own views from these women was really what I was getting out of it. I wasn't actually capturing people's opinions at all. I was just injecting my own bias by asking these questions about things I care about.
Peu à peu, au cours de ces 3 mois, je m'aperçus que toutes ces questions, souvent, loin de refléter une mentalité collective, la trahissaient et la déformaient. À mon manque d'objectivité, même inconscient, correspondait en effet, la plupart du temps, un inévitable défaut de sincérité chez ceux que j'interrogeais.
And that was, so true from what we could see there. But at the same time, I think it gave us something meaningful about a fascinating period of what is now history, but at the time must have been a very exciting new time to be living in.
Yeah. Can you imagine not knowing who Bob Dylan is? Just how mind-blowing Bob Dylan must have been.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it mustn't be too unlike right now because Bob Dylan is just so far in the past that nobody remembers.
Yeah,
that's true.
Who the fuck is Bob Dylan?
Oh, guys.
God, add Bob Dylan to the list of burns that Michael...
Yeah. No, you're right, though. Paul was the kind of guy that when you say Dylan, he thinks you're talking about Dylan Thomas, whoever he was. The man ain't got no culture.
All right, Paul Simon. That's some huge name, isn't it?
Oh, that's
desultory Philippic.
A simple desultory Philippic, or how I was Robert McNamara into submission by Paul Simon.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, that's a great. Yeah, you could. That's the name of a song. You should. It's worth a look up.
And I feel like Paul and Robert would have really liked that song. I think they'd have thought it was very deep.
Yes, and he must have written it a couple of years later, right? That could have been in the closing credits of the film. and same kind of thing, just sort of parodying everything they can see, but without really making a comment on any of it. I had one question. The woman at the window,
Miss 19 or whatever she was
Miss
called.
19, that was her. That really struck me.
Yeah.
Because she was, I think she was the best actor in the film. And if she wasn't, then it was just a real interview. Is there any chance that some of this was just real?
No.
I don't think, I think she was probably just an actor.
Right, because it seemed so realistic, the way that she was reacting to those questions. She just seemed like she was just a bit taken aback by some of the questions and just wouldn't respond to some of them. And there were these slightly weird things where she says something and the interviewer doesn't quite catch it and asks it again, and she says, "Oh, I just told you," and it just all, it was so unpoetic. And her reactions were so real.
Reminded me of 7 Up. Do you know the interviews with like the 21-year-olds where they'd say, "Oh, and do you want a family?" And they just look at the interviewer and be like, "Well, maybe, I don't know."
Well, why are you asking me that? Why should you ask me whether I want a family? Yeah.
It was a well-made scene, I think. Yeah. But again, kind of was making her look a bit bimbo-ish.
I thought she didn't come off well. You're right, I thought the acting was good because she did look genuinely very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I read that Godard had said about Paul, or whoever the actor is, that he was genuinely quite uncomfortable in front of the camera. So you're picking up like just a real awkwardness.
That's unsurprising to
me. So I wonder if he just went around making people uncomfortable.
It made me uncomfortable. and watching it, I couldn't think for a second, what a dumb bimbo beauty queen or whatever. I was just thinking, wow, she just seems like a normal person. And of course, if we're not in a Jean-Luc Godard film, people don't just have these sudden commentaries on socialism that they prepared earlier to suddenly spring out with, or start singing some poem about Karl Marx that they just thought of.
Oh, but she didn't even know there was a war on. She hadn't heard about the war in Vietnam.
Oh, she had. She didn't want to answer the question, right?
She said she didn't know. She said, "Where is there a war?" I feel. And
she said, "No, I don't want to talk about that." And she was saying, "I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into, socialism and all of these thorny political things that you're going to start bringing up here."
Well,
exactly the same as what do you know about contraception? She was very, very reluctant to say anything.
It's interesting that one was too personal and the war was too foreign. She felt like she couldn't comment on either.
Yeah.
Is it the only thing she can comment on fashion, or how much she likes America?
Yeah.
How she just loves Pepsi Cola.
Yeah, the Pepsi thing was funny.
Terrible opinions.
I love Pepsi. I love Pepsi. I think I might prefer Pepsi.
I prefer Pepsi.
Wow.
Although I am drinking Coke right now.
I'm drinking whiskey right now.
Scottish cola.
Bar. No, that's Iron Brew, Michael. Come on.
Oh yes.
Silly me.
I think to be fair, probably. Oh, sorry. Just very briefly, I think I'm probably digging myself into a corner. Some of it I didn't hate as much as I'm. The fact that you liked it so much, though, is making me hate it more for some reason.
Yeah, and the fact that you hated it so much is making me want to defend it more. So maybe we should both come back to the centre of it. If I don't think that it was an assassination of the character of women, I do think that it had a lack of interesting female thought, I guess. I think that if I had been making that film, I would have had more from the women's point of view, more of their thoughts and beliefs and feelings, rather than this fairly external, what's she thinking kind of way of running things, and having the male character at the centre of it.
Yeah, it was trying to have them drive the conversation. And it was a conversation the women didn't want to be having.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get to engage with them.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought those scenes were good, but I wanted to see the other side of that. If you've shown us that they're uncomfortable talking about these things, what are they comfortable talking about? What would they be asking the men?
So there was one interesting line, and I think there are two ways of reading it. So quite near the start, he's trying to explain why you can't just ask any woman on the street what any French woman might think. And the line, it says, that I don't know how much is lost in translation, is the average French woman doesn't exist.
La française moyenne n'existe pas.
And in context, I think they were meaning no one woman represents all women. No one woman is average. But I think it could also mean that the average woman just might as well not exist. She's treated as if she doesn't exist.
Brilliant.
The average French woman doesn't exist. Her opinion doesn't matter.
Very good.
I think there's 2 ways you can read that line, and that's just based on what the subtitles said that line was, so it might be nonsense. But I think there was something in that, maybe. I think the film maybe reflected that. That we didn't actually get to know the opinions of the average French woman over the course of this film.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get the opinions of any French woman.
Yeah, I thought that was a shortcoming.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yes, flawed, but...
I'm still stunned that you liked it. I just can't believe it. I thought it was like, remember I think it was Drugstore Cowboy, where it opens with a black and white little vignette of them mucking around under a bridge. And I was like, this is the feature of that, is it? It's just random jump cuts and nonsensical conversations. It's all black and white.
Yeah. It was giving me something to think about, though. It had, like, this film had some meaning.
What did you think about? What was the meaning of it, Michael? There was nothing. Sorry, anyway.
Well, I think that's what the film explores, Laura. And I think if you'd stayed awake for all of it, you'd feel very much the same way that you do now.
I absolutely tried my best, Michael.
Yeah, it had a lot of different things it was saying, and it wasn't really committing to any of them, very much like that other Godard film we saw. But like most scenes had several curious lines that you could think about for a while. Just thoughts and stuff going on, and it was surprising. There was a lot of who's this person and what was going on with the random acts of violence?
That was bizarre.
It must have happened maybe 5 times. We just had a murder in the middle of the street and basically no one reacts. Or suicide, yeah. All of these things that are quite dramatic, and then we just go to the next scene, it's never mentioned again. And it seemed to me that was just kind of saying, look, we live in a world where terrible things happen and people just don't pay attention. Forget the war in Vietnam. People are just being shot all the time, just in the cities we live in, and we've just come to accept dreadful things that happen because we've just burned out on it. And there's some truth in that. And it was taken to a bizarre extreme, like so these things don't just randomly happen like that. But yeah, it was interesting and weird just throwing that straight in there. This bizarre commentary on modern life as it was then.
Was it supposed to reflect our ability to ignore violence when it's
I thought so.
Foreign, when it's not right on our doorstep?
But it was. How was it not right on their doorstep?
Well, no, that's the point. It was. So we all ignore violence when it's abroad. And that's effectively the same as watching a wife shoot her husband right in front of you. Can you just ignore that? Why can you ignore something awful happening far away?
I think there's something in that.
That sort of coldness and ability to ignore violence. But it's right in front of you. And that's harder to ignore, but that's essentially the same as what we're doing all the time.
Sounds fairly symbolic.
Peut-être.
La cloche de symbolisme. Attendez!
Are your family ever like, why is he ringing that fucking bell at 6 a.m?
I'm sure that they're still asleep and they never notice.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of is that when I was working as a cleaner in DRA, we spent the last day just mucking about, sort of filming ourselves doing random things, and then I cut it all together to some opera music. Just in a way that was meant to be, look at this shit random film that we've made. And it reminded me of that. There's a scene where a trolley's upturned and the wheels just going round and round in slow motion. And I thought you could read into that. You could read anything into that. And indeed, I thought that was a generous reading of the violence. But, you know, I see where you're coming. I see it could be that. I think it could equally be, who knows what he was thinking.
That's the point. It's a film. We get to...
Oh, I'm being very cynical this morning. Since when do I like my films black and white? But today I just want my meat and 2 veg.
Don't worry, we'll watch Dam Busters next time.
Tell you how. Yeah, that's a good point, because normally I just like my villains bad and my goodies good.
Yeah.
And very simple. Hero wins the day.
Maybe this is that thing again where I just have no sympathy for teenage boys. Even though he was 21, it's just in the cusp.
Very much teenage boys.
Same with Boyhood. I'm like, I just don't have time for you with your false depth. There's no depth. You have no substance.
Yeah. And in fact, it was a similar thing to Boyhood and that bit at the end, right, where he just thinks he's being so deep, but actually he's just a bit of a clown.
It's like it's always rain.
The best quote we've ever had. I love it now.
That's just brilliant. I'd say it several times a month, I would say.
I believe I said it during this film where I was like, it will never not be right now. This is never going to end. I had 3 minutes to the end and I was desperate to pee and I was like, I'll just stick it out. Come on. And then about 30 seconds had passed. I was like, I can't do it. I have to stop this.
30 seconds that seemed like a lifetime.
Anyway, sorry, symbolism. What do we think?
So I had one.
Oh, yeah.
They watched a particularly graphic and awful film. I think it was meant to be an American film with a rape scene in it.
Yep.
And they were just kind of watching it, just chilled out, like, oh yeah, we just watched that again, the sort of desensitized to violence thing going on. And it occurred to me that I think the 2 characters in that were kind of meant to represent Paul and Madeline.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. That's good.
So they're kind of, it seems the 2 of them are in a relationship and, she's trying to escape at some point, but he's stopping her from doing that. And in the end, she starts taking her clothes off because she's kind of stuck and he's far too aggressive and forward. Yeah. It was an odd one, which was not exactly what's going on in their relationship, but he was definitely a bit of a brute. And all she cared about was not getting pregnant, and then she fucking got pregnant. I don't know. Just made me think of that. And then we get this bit where he goes up to complain about the aspect ratio.
That was fun. I enjoyed that scene. I thought that was good.
Again, it felt like a bit of a stand-in for Godard there. He presumably has been pissed off with people not showing his films, right? But I also have a lot of opinions about aspect ratios and them fucking chopping these things up just for some stupid reason, quoting ISO standards. Definitely felt like the kind of thing I'd do. But then
I did think of you when he said ISO.
Yeah. Well, it's just as easy to get right, isn't it? All the problems we have with cropped films are problems we create for ourselves.
That's just what Paul would have said.
Yeah. But so then he's done that. He's abandoned this film with this, terribly violent and meaningful scene. And the only thing he's taken from it is the aspect ratio and that the picture has been cropped. He's completely missed the actual meaning of it. And then I think he walks past an actual rape happening right next to the theatre.
Yep.
And I think he misses it the first time and on the way back briefly notices and decides to ignore it. Could there be anything more exemplary of his just ignorance and his phony activism?
Maybe it is also my ignorance because I did not see that actual rape was a rape. I thought they were kind of, I guess, doing the equivalent of cruising outdoors.
It wasn't totally
I
clear.
well.
Okay, maybe that's right. It's the way she was sort of looking down and sort of turned away from him. It was something weird was going on at least. Oh, maybe I've misinterpreted the scene.
Or maybe it was a rape. Except if it was, then it was just in plain daylight.
Yeah.
But we've had murder in plain daylight that no one reacted to.
That is true. That is true.
I took it to be another example of just a random, violent scene that they just kind of ignore. It was a weird thing for him just to ignore and walk straight past, but a weird thing for him, therefore, to have put on camera and have just this moment where he looks and thinks about going over and then doesn't. There's some meaning there, and I can't think of any version that reflects well on Paul.
Could it be possible that even though we might be well-intentioned, and even though the ideas might sound good in our minds, when putting them into practice, it just becomes so much more difficult. As in, you might want to say, oh yes, I'm going to stop drinking coffee now because I know that it is bad for my health. But every morning you still drink coffee because you're just too weak to abandon it. And same with any of your other political ideas. You might want to say, this is what I consider good. But because you've lived in a society that behaves in a certain way for so long, just breaking from those habits is much more difficult, at least for the average citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
Should make a film.
Yeah.
I think it would be better.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
So has anyone else seen A Clockwork Orange?
No.
No, actually.
So a lot of the casual violence reminded me of A Clockwork Orange. And it surprised me because this film was made before the Stanley Kubrick film.
Yeah.
And people were furious about A Clockwork Orange and how it represented violence and rape and all these awful things. And it's like, well, as far as I can remember it, if anything, it was a bit more like cartoonish than this.
Right.
Which made it a bit less, well, obviously less realistic and maybe less scary and less, offensive. And I'm surprised that this didn't, you never hear, I'm surprised people were so taken aback by A Clockwork Orange in the context of this film, knowing that this had already been made.
I see. Was it the distinction between a mainstream Hollywood film and an independent, artsy French film? Was
this independent and artsy? Because Jean-Luc Godard is, he's a well-known director and stuff.
I think isn't he just well-known in, like film studies circles?
I suppose
like in the artistic community.
Stanley Kubrick, is he?
Yeah, I mean, Stanley Kubrick made blockbusters, didn't he?
I don't know. Yes. I mean, I'm sure you probably are right. It's hard to grasp because he is just so famous. But now I'm thinking of it, it's just in film circles.
So, for example, I'd never heard of Jean-Luc Godard.
Right.
Except from you. I couldn't name any of his other films except these two. And I couldn't have named either of them before you guys showed me them. And I don't think I've heard his name mentioned other than among the four of us.
And in France. People in France knew who he was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's probably well famous in France.
I think he's well famous in France.
But then they perhaps had a more laissez-faire attitude to this sort of thing.
Très bien.
Merci.
What does your pen pal think of it?
Je préfère le cinéma.
Oh, don't, because that's how I speak French.
I think you're a little better than
that. Other things this reminded me of included Alan Bennett films, so very conversation-driven.
Yeah.
And Paul reminded me of So do you know in History Boys, there's the Christian boy?
Yeah.
And they have the scene at the start where they're talking about wanking.
Yeah.
And he's got this kind of miserable, like, unreactive sort of character. And that, so Paul reminded me of that character a lot.
Oh, interesting.
But I feel like the 17-year-old that was represented in History Boys was actually a lot smarter and a lot deeper than Paul was. And actually had more of a balanced worldview.
I think you're right.
I've never seen History Boys, actually. I must.
That's going to have to be a pick sometime.
Amazing.
You might really hate it.
I like the other Alan Bennett stuff that we've watched.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh yeah, we watched A Chip and the Sugar, didn't we?
Yeah. And I've seen The Lady in the Van.
Yeah.
And
that's
I feel like I've seen something else. Prick Up Your Ears.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Has anyone seen The Madness of King George?
Yeah, I saw it once years ago.
Is it good?
I liked it. I didn't like it as much as those other films, but maybe I'd like it more now.
Yeah.
If everyone who's pregnant wants to sit down, soon it'll be fellows with gout, and before you know it, this place is going to start looking like a Turkish harem. That's the main line I remember from it. No, it's not bad. You know the thing about the film and the title of it?
No.
So the play is called The Madness of George III, and they changed it. For the film, they called it The Madness of King George, so that people wouldn't think that they'd missed the first two, because it would have looked like The Madness of King George 3. Supposedly, they thought it wouldn't work in the American marketplace, so they changed it.
Can't be true. That's one of these things.
Yeah, that cannot be true. That doesn't make sense, because that would be 3 kings, or what? 3 Mad, 3 George, or something like that. You wouldn't do it.
Yes. The Madness of King George, Tokyo Drift. Certainly it's true that was the name of the play and that was the name of the film.
Very good.
Not another one.
I've actually said everything that I've got written down here. Paul was dreadful.
I thought he was
nice.
very good looking, though.
He was quite handsome.
Yeah.
But so was she. Can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Madeline.
Yeah.
Madeline was also great.
I thought they were a very attractive couple.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I thought he looked
not
a
so
little
much
bit
for
like...
Robert.
No, Robert, not such a looker.
He was interesting.
He had his own charm.
Yes. Yeah.
I did despise him in just the same way.
Yes, I thought he had a bit of the
personality. Sorry, go on.
Timothée Chalamet about him.
Yeah, a little bit. I can see that.
Yeah. Focusing on one person during a two-way conversation where the camera doesn't move from... Well, it seemed to kind of randomly flip between people, but it would solidly sit on and you'd just hear it as though it was a Talking Heads kind of interview. It's quite interesting. And I wondered if we were being thrust into the person's shoes, just as Paul tried in the cafe.
Oh, you can't be thrust into someone's shoes, as we found out.
Exactly. Well, that's why I thought he wasn't looking directly at the camera. It was this weird, your spectral presence in this interview.
Nice.
Very symbolic.
Yes, indeed. That was very near the beginning, and then I thought, I'm not going to bother interpreting the rest of this. Or did I? Maybe I did. I don't know. It's difficult to tell, isn't it? I feel like if you'd come in and absolutely hated it, I would have felt the need to kind of pull out its good sides more.
Yeah.
But there's no need for me to do that.
Overall, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Well, the film was definitely slow and boring. I think I enjoyed this conversation much more than I enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but bit of a thumbs down for me, I think. And I think it would have been a thumbs down in any scenario.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a thumbs up from me. Good film.
That's nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
What about instead of a thumbs down, we just get a fist bump? That's more neutral.
A fist bump is medium, is it?
It's 3:00.
A fist bump is let's let go of our differences and just chill out, dude.
Oh, I think we can all agree on that.
Well, that took us up to the time. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, as long as once you've got the 20 minutes of
Oh, yeah,
astrology.
we're a bit under, actually, yeah. Oh.
Next up, I think it's the two girls left in the hat.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure they'll pick something
two
really,
girls,
really rubbish and pointless because they're just idiots, airheaded.
Do you know what I watched almost immediately after that film, I watched Enchanted on Disney Plus, and I was like, this is a film.
Brilliant. Well, if you want to pick that, no complaints from me. I've never seen Enchanted.
You've never seen Enchanted?
I've never seen Enchanted.
Oh, I might just then. Right, let's go. Rock, paper, scissors.
3, 2, 1.
Scissors.
Shit.
Okay, Laura.
My God, well, let's do it.
Enchanted? Enchanted, we have it.
That was, that was unexpected. Right, well, I hadn't picked, but I'm glad I got swept up in the moment. And yeah, let's do it. Let's watch Enchanted.
Awesome. Enchanted. See you next time.
Literally so many films that I'm dying to pick.
Is it 2007?
Yes, it is.